Welcome back to Take Care Time, the tales and exhales of caregivers. I'm your host, Beverly Nance, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but here we are kicking off season 2. Oh, I guess I'm really a podcaster. First and foremost, I want to thank every single one of you for listening, supporting, and sharing your stories with me, your questions, story requests, and words of encouragement throughout season 1. Help shape this podcast into a true community, and I am grateful. As we dive into this new season, I'm excited to bring more powerful stories that resonate, challenge, and inspire you, and also entertain you as well. And we're starting strong with a topic close to my heart, which is adult day programs for adults with disabilities. These programs are meant to be a lifeline for families like mine, providing structure and support for adults with disabilities. But finding the right program can be a journey filled with both hope and heartbreak. So, come on, let's get into this. This is the story of George, affectionately known as JoJo, and his family as they navigate the complicated emotional process of securing the care he needs. It's a story of resilience, advocacy, and a quest to find the right place. The Morales family lives in a modest home on the outskirts of Atlanta, Georgia. George Morales Sr., a long-distance truck driver, spends most of his days on the road, hauling goods across the country. His wife, Rosa, she sometimes works part-time at a local retail store. She juggles her shifts around caring for her 25-year-old son, JoJo. JoJo has autism and significant support needs. JoJo is the heart of the family. He's nonverbal, but communicates through gestures and a few signs he learned during his school years. He loves music, particularly the ranchero songs his dad plays on the weekends when Dad's home. JoJo's favorite thing to do is sit in the backyard, watching the trees sway in the wind and humming to himself. Despite his challenges, he's a gentle soul, deeply connected to his parents. But life isn't easy for the Morales family. Rosa describes their day as a constant balancing act. She wakes up early to prepare JoJo's meals, help him with his hygiene, and ensure he has some structured activities. When George Sr. is home, he pitches in, but his job keeps him away from his family for long stretches. The couple rarely has time together, let alone time for themselves. We're doing our best, Rosa says, but sometimes it feels like we're just surviving. JoJo's childhood was marked by a mix of joy and worry. Rosa remembers when he was a baby, how he giggled uncontrollably whenever she sang to him. But as he grew older, she began to notice the differences. He didn't speak his first words, and he avoided eye contact. At 2 years old, he was diagnosed with autism. The Morales family threw themselves into supporting JoJo. Rosa attended every parent training offered by the school district, learning strategies to help him communicate and manage sensory overload. And George Jr., despite his grueling schedule, made it a point to attend JoJo's individualized education program, known as IEP meetings. I wanted them to know we're paying attention, George Sr. says. No one's going to ignore my son. JoJo's years in school were a mix of progress and setbacks. He thrived in a structured classroom with a patient teacher, but transitions were always hard. Rosa recalls one field trip where JoJo became so overwhelmed that he bolted into the parking lot. It was a terrifying moment that reinforced how much supervision he needed. Despite the bad days, there were good days for JoJo, and at the age of 22, he aged out of public schools. But now what? It was at the recommendation of JoJo's last teacher that Rosa and George applied for the Medicaid waiver for JoJo. Now, before we dive deeper into JoJo's story, let's take a moment to understand Medicaid waivers, which are critical in providing services for individuals with disabilities. In Georgia, the now-comp waivers, short for New Option Waiver and Comprehensive Support Waiver, are designed to help individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities live more independently in their communities. These waivers cover services like adult day programs, respite care, personal support, and job coaching, community access support, community living support, and make it possible for families to access the care they need without institutionalizing their loved one. Let me say it again. Without institutionalizing their loved ones. However, due to limited funding and high demand, thousands of individuals remain on the waiting list for years before receiving approval. For families like the Morales family, this delay can be agonizing. Without support waivers, many parents become full-time caregivers with limited resources, while adults with disabilities like JoJo face isolation and a lack of meaningful engagement. This system leaves families in limbo, waiting for a call that could change everything. It felt like we were shouting into a void, Rosa says. Every time I called to check on the application, they'd say the same thing. You're still on the list. You're still on the list. Without the waiver, the Morales family was left to piece together support on their own. Rosa took on more hours at work to cover private therapies, but it just wasn't sustainable. JoJo spent most of his days at home, restless and isolated. For Jorge Sr., the situation was heartbreaking. I see him sitting there day after day with nothing to do. He deserves better than this. He deserves more than this. After 3 years of waiting, the call finally came. JoJo's waiver application had been approved. Rosa cried tears of relief, knowing this was their chance to find a program that could give JoJo structure and purpose. But the relief was short-lived. As Rosa and George began visiting day programs, they realized the decision wasn't going to be simple. Some places felt more like warehouses than programs, Rosa says. The staff seemed overwhelmed, and the participants just sat around doing nothing. The search was exhausting, but Rosa refused to settle. After weeks of visits and interviews, they found the Bridge Center, a program that promised individualized care and engaging activities. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like the best option available. Rosa filled out the paperwork and waited, and finally, JoJo was scheduled for his first day. On his first day, Rosa packs his lunch and double-checks his backpack, her heart filled with a mix of hope and apprehension. Jorge Sr. hugs JoJo tightly before heading back on the road. He whispered in his ear, "You've got this, mijo." For years, Rosa had envisioned what this moment might feel like. The first day, JoJo would be somewhere safe, engaged, and cared for, giving her time to breathe. She thought she'd celebrate. Maybe she'd take a long shower, enjoy a hot cup of coffee, or even go back to sleep for an hour. But as the van pulled away, she didn't feel like celebrating. She felt an exhale, one long and deep, like releasing years of tension that she hadn't realized she was carrying. Her hands trembled slightly as she closed the door behind her. The house, usually filled with JoJo's soft humming, was eerily quiet. She stood in the kitchen, staring at the coffee pot, but didn't make a cup. Instead, she sat down at the table. Exhaustion washed over her like a wave. For the first time in years, she wasn't immediately responsible for someone else's needs. And yet, instead of feeling free, she felt lost. Who was she without the constant caregiving? What did she even like to do anymore? Hours passed, but Rosa hardly noticed. She scrolled through old pictures on her phone. JoJo as a baby. JoJo at his graduation from high school. Silly moments with his dad. She cried, not just from the relief, but from the weight of the journey it had taken to get here. When she finally glanced at the clock, she realized it was almost time for JoJo to come home. She hadn't done a single thing she planned, but somehow she had done exactly what she needed: processed, grieved, and exhaled. In our next episode of the Bridge Center, JoJo's first day brings unexpected challenges. Rosa and George quickly realize that even the best programs have growing pains, and JoJo's transition is anything but smooth. Will the Bridge Center be everything they hoped for, or will it reveal cracks they hadn't anticipated? Join me as we explore the realities of day programs, beyond the brochures and promises, to uncover what really makes a place the right fit. Caring for a loved one is a full-time job, but that doesn't mean you have to do it without a break. The Take Care Time Respite Box is designed just for caregivers like you, because you deserve a break too. You deserve care too. Each box is thoroughly curated with self-care essentials to help you recharge, including soothing teas, relaxation tools, and small delights that bring comfort in the midst of caregiving. Give yourself permission to pause. Visit TakeCareTime.com to order your Take Care Time Respite Box today, because caring for yourself is just as important as taking care of others. Please note that this episode features reenactments and dramatized details. While in most cases the exact verbatim dialogue may not be known, all dramatizations are grounded in thorough research and crafted to honor the stories shared. To respect the privacy and confidentiality of individuals involved, names and some identifying details have been changed. Do you have a caregiving story that deserves to be told? I'd love to hear from you. Whether it's about navigating the system, finding the right support, overcoming a personal challenge, hiring the right person, or even firing the wrong person, your experiences can help inspire and educate others. If you'd like to share your story on Take Care Time, the tales and exhales of caregivers, email me at podcasts@takecaretime.com. Your journey matters, and together we can bring more awareness to the realities of caregiving. Until next week, take care.